So I've got to see if I can set it up. That's why it went all feedbacky. I'm just going to try it one more time. Excellent. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to put me on a full screen. It seems to just have that repeat. Hold on. So you guys can see me. I'm not sure how many of you can pause that because that's not working out. Was it? Oh, and YouTube Studio. That should be it there. I don't know if I can live stream from the dashboard. Can you guys see me even with the screen in front? I'm just going to put this up, see what your chat's saying. Yeah, I just can't. Yeah, I could see Serena on YouTube, which wasn't great either. I'm not sure how to stop that, so I'm going to try pinning. Try just pinning me. And then live streams should be working, and maybe just press go live then. It did have a thing before. It's just, oh, I know, there it is, live. Okay, let's try again. Okay, are we getting feedback? No. Good. Okay, so let's see if this works this time. I'm hoping that it will. So I'm just going to get started and we'll see what happens with this. I am just going to, hi everybody who might be joining us live on YouTube. I apologize for the delay. I had a bit of an issue with the internet. So hopefully you guys will all see me now. So we're going to get started talking about our posture and alignment. In the other couple of sessions you've had with Philippa, we've talked about the 3 mistakes, and we've also, and I'm really sorry for the lateness of that, I just really couldn't get this to work. You talked about the 3 mistakes and we talked about fascia release. So now we're going to talk a little bit about posture and alignment, and I'm going to start with the feet. So I always start from the very bottom and work up. So if we look at our feet for just a moment, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, if your feet are pointing straight ahead, that means that we've got a balance in our pelvis, or at least the start of a balance in our pelvis. If you tend to stand like I do with one foot out towards the side, what this does to your pelvis is as you turn your leg out towards the side, it creates a tightness in the back of one side of your pelvis while stretching at the front. And if you want to try it out, you can turn your foot and you'll feel that happen. So if we take both our feet and put them into a kind of ballerina pose, what's happening here is we're creating a lot of tension at the back of the pelvis and we're creating a lot of stretch at the front of the pelvic floor. So we're creating a contraction and then an extension here. So what I would love you to do is just take a moment and stand with your feet hip distance apart, pointing them straight ahead. Then what I'd love you to do is I'd love you to make sure that your feet are evenly weighted. So we want to make sure we're not weighting too much on the outside, because this creates an imbalance in our pelvis, or too much on the inside of our feet, as this also creates an imbalance in our pelvis. And we also don't want to be lifting our toes up, because if we lift our toes up, and lots of people do this when they stand, if we lift our toes up when we stand, then what happens is we switch off our connection between our big toe and our abdominal muscles. So if we stand, we want to have our toes softly on the floor, inside and outside of our feet. Good. So now we're already setting ourselves up for a great start when it comes to alignment. The next thing, as we progress up the body, is to think about the knees. So if we lock our knees out, you can see immediately what that does to my posture. My pelvis rocks forward, my ribcage rocks back, and I have no compliance or no proper activation in my abdominals here. So everything here is kind of switched off. So the first thing to help correct this is our feet, and then soften your knees. So we're not waiting for a bend of our knees. We just want to feel that our kneecaps are released. Okay, So now we've done those two parts of the puzzle, we want to come to the pelvis. Oftentimes with the pelvis, if we've got issues going on with our pelvic floor, we will do a couple of things. The first one is we'll start to stand really close in with our legs. So we're almost trying to create a contraction, you know, like this. So we're almost trying to create a tension in our adductors and in our thighs to help with our pelvis. And this can be, your knees can come in a bit. So this is when we sometimes have our toes tucking in the way. And I am very much over exaggerating this, but we have it in different bases. The other thing that can happen is that if we have pelvic floor dysfunction and we're worried about our pelvic floor, we start to tuck our tailbone under. So what will happen here is we'll get a flat back, we'll over tension our glutes. This will create too much tension at the posterior part of our pelvic floor, so it can't be functional and can't move the way I'm going to explain to you in a moment. So we have this real gripping of the pelvic floor. Then quite often what we're asked to do is Kegels, so squeezies. So you've already got this tensioning of the pelvic floor, and then you squeeze and squeeze and squeeze until your body is just so overtired it can't do it anymore. So the first thing we're going to do here is get some looseness into this pelvis so it's not tight. So we have our feet hip distance apart, our knees soft, we've got our pelvis. We're going to, just for the purposes of this, bend our knees a little bit so we can really feel the pelvis move. And we're going to tilt our pelvis forwards, which means I'm going to have a lordotic spine, which means a really big, so more hyperlordotic, a really big curve in my spine. And then I'm going to tuck my tailbone under, so now I've got that flat spine. And I'm going to tuck my tailbone out again, so I'm anteriorly tilting, and now I'm posteriorly tilting backwards. And we're just going to go through this range, forwards and back, a few times. And just allow our back to be hyperlordotic for a minute. And this can feel quite nice if you've been holding it tight for ages. So let's go forwards and back. And then what I'd like you to do is find the center. Now, there's lots of cues that people are given for this. So quite a lot of people say, put your fingertips on your pubic bone, the heel of your hands on your ASS bone. I know I always used to. And make sure they're in a straight line. And this is a great way to help you find neutral, but it doesn't really stop you from trying to pull in with your buttocks behind you. The other cue that quite often is given is to think about lifting from the pubic bone as you draw your sacrum down. And yes, this may put you into a kind of neutral position, but again, there's a tendency to want to tuck my tailbone underneath. The cue I give people these days is to think about, I know it's a really weird cue by the way, is to think about having a torch shining out of your vagina. Now, as long as the torch is somewhere between the forefoot and the heel, a little bit between the two places, so you can have a little bit of freedom with the movement. We just don't want your torch shining behind you, and we don't want the torch shining in front of you. So just being aware of that kind of idea of a light shining out of your vagina. I know I said it was going to be weird. It is weird. But it gives you, we don't want to hold tension in our pelvis. I would love you not to hold any sort of tension here at all. It almost, if we think about it, our thigh bones come up and then they meet ligaments, tendons, muscles, and the bone sits on top. So it should feel nice and fluid. And in order to help us find that fluidity as well, I'd like you to imagine that you've got a pencil from your coccyx, so pointing down towards the floor. And we're going to use that pencil to draw a figure of 8 in the floor, and just really take your time finding your figure of 8. The more movement we can get into our pelvis and our body, the less dry our connective tissue is going to be in our fascia. The less dry it is, the more the organs, the pelvic organs can slide and glide. Let's go the other way. The more the pelvic organs can slide and glide, and the more supported they'll be. The more we hold our pelvis tight and stuck, the more stuck and dry our connective tissue will get. And when it gets dry, it creates friction as our pelvic organs try and move, like our vagina and our uterus and our rectum and our bladder. So your symptoms might feel way worse. So I know when we have pelvic floor dysfunction, we think, I don't want to move. I really don't want to move. I'm just going to move really slowly. My organs might fall out, but they're not going to fall out. But If we stay still, the symptoms will get worse. If we do gentle movement, like little hip circles, you could do circles, you could do figures of 8. This will start to create moisture in the fascia and help us with the slide and glide. And also, fascia is like a sponge. So if we can imagine that if it's really nice and moist, it'll be able to help support our pelvic organs and also help with shock absorption when we walk. So, figures of 8s whenever you feel you want to do them. And we've remembered our torch between our thighs. We've got our feet evenly weighted, with our knees soft. Now we come to the rib cage. So, a lot of times when we have pelvic organ dysfunction, we also have stuff going on with our posture here. And this can be a gripping. So quite often, a lot of my clients, a lot of my ladies, what they do is they try and lift their pelvic organs from above by gripping here at the front. So we get this gripping inwards that then becomes a bit kyphotic. Kyphotic is when we've got the curve in our back. And if we're also tucking our tailbone under, we become a really odd shape. And I have a lot of clients that turn up like this. So we're going to release our rib cage. But we're not going to release it and press it forward because this is another coping strategy. We're going to make sure our rib cage is directly over our pelvis. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to push our rib cage over to one side. And then push it over to the other side. And then push it over to the other side. And we're just going to go backwards, well, sideways and sideways. Good to start with. Excellent. Now you might feel this feels quite tight. So let's come back to the center and let's loosen it up a bit or give it a little bit of mobility. I'd like you to place your hands around your rib cage with your fingers to the front and your thumbs to the back, like you're holding it like a pincer movement. Okay. Now, what I'd like you to do is twist around to one side. And I'd like you to notice what happens to the ribs as you twist. Can you notice that as you twist round, the side you're twisting away from becomes flatter, and the side you're twisting towards becomes a little bit more pointy. I'd like you to use your grabby hand and just gently massage the pointy side. And then you're going to twist the other way, releasing the pointy side, but massaging the other pointy side now. So we're just going to rotate round and squeeze, and then rotate back and squeeze, and rotate back around and squeeze, and back around and squeeze, and then come back to the center. So, finding our rib cage now on top of our pelvis. So we want to make sure that we're not thrusting forwards, we're not thrusting back, and we're not thrusting off to one side. So just, if you take your hands and place them around your rib cage and then slide them down the way, just making sure that everything feels nice and in alignment. Shoulders next. We carry a lot of tension in our shoulders, and this can, especially with pelvic floor dysfunction, so we're just going to do a nice roll of our shoulders. It's something we all recognise since we've done so many strange things already this evening. It's nice big circles. And then you're going to repeat and go back the other way. So nice, huge, big circles back the other way. Really warming ourselves up. Okay. Now for our neck. So for this exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to look first of all over one shoulder. And I'd just like you to notice where you can see what's in your eye vision. What's in your vision? Your eye vision and your vision. And then you're going to look around the other way and the same thing. And then come back to the start. Now, as you look over your shoulder this time, I'd like you to now use your eyes to try and look a little bit further around. And can you feel how you can just get a little bit of release when you use your eyes? And then come back to the start. And then go the other way and use your eyes to look over your shoulder again. And then come back to the start. So it's just a nice, really simple way for us to start finding release in our neck. So let's recap, and then I'm going to talk a bit about breathing, and we're going to practice the breathing. So let's recap. So feet. We want to have our feet pointing straight ahead to stop us over tightening the back or the front of the pelvis. We don't want extra tension in the pelvis. We want a functional pelvic floor. So feet pointing straight ahead. Then we want to make sure that they're evenly weighted side to side, front to back, and your toes are not scrunched up. Nice soft toes, but big toes on the floor. Soft knees, so make sure we're just releasing the kneecaps. Neutral pelvis, thinking about that torch shining out of your vagina to find your neutral pelvis. Give your ribs a little swivel round to make sure they're on top of your pelvis. Shoulders super relaxed, like you're a rag doll. And then I'd like you to look over your shoulder one more time, and then look round. And we're attempting to balance our head on top of our shoulders. Now, if you're somebody whose head has crept forward, it's like for every inch or every centimetre our head creeps forward, it's 5 pounds extra weight on your base of your spine. It's some number like that, it's huge. So if your head has crept forward, what I'd like you to do is just take your hands and place them behind the bony bit at the back of your head. And then all I'd like you to do is just gently press back into your hands and use your hands to lift your skull a little bit off your shoulders. So you should feel a nice little light stretch in the back of your neck, but nothing too tense. We're not looking for any tension. And then drop your hands and try and keep it there. Okay, and relax your bodies for a minute. We're going to come back into that in a moment. I'd like to talk you through the breath and why we do a 360 breath, and then we're going to practice one. So lots of people have upper chest breathing here or belly breathing here. There is a reason why we need to open our ribcage just in general everyday life in order to have a functional pelvic floor. So as we inhale, so think about what happens to your body as you inhale. So take a breath in. Your lungs start to fill, and that sends a message to your diaphragm, which is a sheet of muscle that hangs out underneath your ribcage, that it needs to start engaging. So it starts to contract and it starts to press down. It should, if our bodies were working as well as they could be, as optimally, it should send a message to our ribcage that it needs to widen. Our ribcage needs to widen all the way around, the sides, the back and the front, so that the diaphragm can contract down effectively. Also, at the same time, when the ribcage widens, it sends a message to the abdominal muscles to widen all the way around, like a corset opening. So they open like a corset. This is to create more space, because as the diaphragm presses down, it presses down into the abdominal organs, and it massages our adrenal glands, which is great for us as women, but it also massages the top of the abdominals. The abdominal organs then start to press down into the pelvic organs. But because we widened our ribcage, our abdominal muscles sent a message to our pelvis to start widening and opening a little. And this allows space for the pelvic organs to descend a little. Then that also sends a message, because our pelvis starts to open, that our pelvic floor needs to extend and lift up a bit to support the pelvic organs that are coming down. Then as we exhale, the ribcage closes and the diaphragm draws up underneath the ribcage, and it draws the abdominal organs, the pelvic organs, and the pelvic floor goes, oh yes, and release back in. So on the inhale, we have an extension and a slight lift to meet the descending organs, and as we exhale, it releases back in. So we're going to practice that. So we're going to come to standing. Again, think about your feet being evenly weighted, your knees soft, pelvis nice and neutral, ribcage on top of your pelvis, shoulders relaxed. Think about that neck. If you want to, you can press back a little bit. Okay. Now, hands round your ribcage. And you don't want to have them right up here. Your ribs, if you feel them, your squeezy ribs are further down. And we're all in slightly different places. So now I'd like you to take an inhale in through your nose. And as you inhale through your nose, I'd like you to try and expand your ribcage to the sides and the back and the front, all at the same time. So we're not lifting our ribcage with our shoulders, we're expanding our ribcage with our ribs. And then as you exhale, just allow it to sink back down. Let's do another one. Inhale nice and wide. And exhale, release. We're going to do one more and then I'm going to ask you to do something else. So inhale. And then exhale. So, another thing that we tend to do, or it tends to be quite prevalent when we have pelvic floor dysfunction, is most people, not everybody, but most, tend to hold tension in their jaw. So when we inhale and exhale in hyperpresses, we inhale through our nose, And initially, when we first start learning, we exhale through a relaxed jaw. And this is to help us. If we hold tension in here, we're holding tension in our pelvic floor. So we want to make sure as we exhale, it's just a really relaxed. So hands back around your rib cage, making sure your toes feel nice and relaxed, your knees are soft, your pelvis is lined up. We're going to take a nice deep inhale in through our nose, widening the rib cage, and exhale, allow it to come out. And we don't want to force the air out, we're just allowing it to come out. So we're inhaling, and then exhaling. Now, as you inhale, I'd like you to think about that expansion through your body. But as you exhale, I'd like you to think about your spine getting taller. So it's as if your sacrum, this bit here, is slowly drawing towards the floor, or you can think about your heels pressing into the floor as the crown of your head reaches away. This is to create lots of space in your vertebra, which will really help with your posture. So, finding your alignment again, just taking a moment to think about your feet, your knees, your pelvis, your shoulders, your head, your eyes, everything. And we're going to take a nice deep breath in through our nose, inhaling, and exhaling through your relaxed jaw. Think about growing taller. Inhaling and exhaling. A lot of us breathe really, really quickly, and this can be a really challenging thing when it comes to doing hyperpresses, because we have to be able to pause after an exhale in order to be able to do the apnea breath that we do. So a great way for us to start practicing that, but also start practicing our alignment as well, is to use box breathing. So we're going to inhale for a count of 4, pause for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, and then pause for a count of 4. And we're just going to do this twice through initially. So hands round your ribcage if you like, so you can feel that expansion, especially if you're someone that's not really used your ribcage very much to expand. And it's the bottom of the ribcage that we're looking for the expansion in. Being careful that we're not lifting with our sternocleidomastoid muscles up and down, because if we just lift up and down, we're not going to get that cascade effect that we need for our pelvic floor to be functional. So, hands around your ribcage, and we're going to do our box breathing. We're going to breathe for 4s. So ready to inhale. In, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. And back to your own natural cadence. Did you notice when you were doing that whether you start to grip with your jaw or whether your jaw was relaxed? The other one I'd like you just to have a little thought about, and we're going to do another 2 breath cycles, is your eyes. So I'd like you to make sure that your eyes are looking straight ahead. The minute you start to look down with your eyes, then your posture starts to follow. So we want to always make sure that our eyes are gazing straight ahead. And we want to try and keep them soft. And this is super important for your nervous system, because if there was a tiger about, the first thing really that we would notice would maybe be instinctively there'd be birds flying or something like that, but when we'd see with our eyes, and that vision with our eyes of the tiger would send a message to it all the way down our nervous system to tell our body that it didn't really need our pelvic floor just now, because we're in a stress situation. So we're just going to pump all the blood and oxygen to our lungs and our heart, and we're going to jettison off the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our pelvic floor. So, soft eyes, gazing straight ahead. Think about something beautiful. Hands around your rib cage. Find that balance through your body again. Make sure you're not holding tension in your pelvis, your rib cage, your shoulders, your feet. Let's breathe. Ready to inhale. In, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. And back to your own natural cadence. So let's just have a recap and just make sure we go through everything. We don't ever want to be holding tension in our bodies. We want to think about our bodies as being quite fluid and movement, able to move. So at any point where you're feeling that your shoulders are tense, or you're feeling that you're tucking your tailbone under, you've got some strategies now. We could do a little figure of 8. Yeah, we could do a little roll of our shoulders. But let's talk about what we could do for our feet. So if you find that you're clamping your feet, our little last thing we're going to do tonight before we go back up through the whole chain, just to make sure that you've really got it so you can understand what's going on, is we're going to look at our feet. So we want to have our toes so they're mega mobile. So we're going to do a really cool thing. We're going to look down at our toes if you need to look, and we're going to lift both of our big toes off the floor. So you're trying to bring your big toes in towards each other. Excellent. Then we're going to lift all our toes up off the floor, and we're going to place our big toes down. Now, why are we doing this? We're doing this because there are 250 to 300,000 nerve endings in each of our feet, and they share the same nerve root area as our pelvic floor. So that means if we can get our nerves working here at this end, it will send vibrations up through to start warming up our pelvic floor. So lifting all your toes up, you're going to try and put your little toes down now. And then lift all your toes up and put your big toes and your little toes down. And then lift all your toes up and place them down. And now we're going to try a little Mexican wave. We're going to lift our big toes and then each of our other toes individually till we get to our little toes. And then we're going to go all the way back again to our big toe. Excellent. And then give those a shake off. Excellent. So let's just recap. If you're thinking about alignment and balancing your body for the best way for your pelvic floor, we want it loose. We want to make sure we're not hyperextending through our knees, we're not gripping with our toes. So let's work up. Toes relaxed. Feet evenly weighted, side to side, front to back. Knees soft, so they don't have to be bent, but soft. Pelvis, we want to have some movement in our pelvis. So we don't want to hold it so it's like tight to neutral. We want to think about it being quite relaxed on top of our femurs. Rib cage. We want to make sure we've not locked our rib cage in a position like this. So we want to make sure it's nice and loose. And again, you can do little circles with your rib cage, or you can do those little twists if you feel you need a little bit of movement. Shoulders. We want to really simple shoulders. You can just pull them up towards your ears and drop them down if you want something nice and simple to do throughout the day. And then our head. If we take our hands behind our head and place them on the bony protrusion, our occipital bone, and press back lightly and lift a little, you'll start to feel a little bit of length in the back of your skull. Good. And then relax your hands down and make sure again you're not holding tension here. You don't want to be holding it back like I'm Darth Vader. You want to be holding it so it feels nice and relaxed. Good. Okay, and then breathing. The best thing you can do for your pelvic floor right now is to really start utilizing the lower ribs to breathe. So breathing into the lower ribs, making sure you're not lifting from here and you're not pushing just your belly out when you breathe. Really thinking about this 360 breath so we can start the cascade of movement for your pelvic floor. So let's take 3 breaths to finish. Nice and slow as you can. Inhaling through your nose. Exhaling through a nice relaxed jaw and get taller. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhaling. Exhaling. And relax. Shake your arms off, shake your body off. If you've got some questions, pop them in the chat so that I can answer them, and I can come up and see what you guys have got for questions. And I'll see, and also I think they can ask questions over on YouTube as well. I just don't really want to press anything just in case it's too long. So yes, there is a chat system here. So if anybody who is viewing via YouTube would like to, you can add something in the chat here. I'll put in a hello. Okay, I'm not Moonrise Philippa, by the way, just so you all know. So those of you who haven't met me before, I'm Abby Lord, and I'm a master trainer in hyperpressives. I'm a somatic movement specialist, Pilates teacher almost, personal trainer, TRE, shaking therapy provider, and lots more. Kettlebell instructor, K-weight instructor, yeah, so lots. So ask away. If you've got any questions, please just fire them into the chat. I might come right up to the camera so you can see what's going on. And I was going to give you a little bit of information about our course as well. So that's the other thing I had to do. Remember now. So we have cohorts that we run, it's not a course. It's a healing container. So in our healing containers, we have 12-week sessions where we introduce you to hyperpressives, we introduce you to scar tissue release, we introduce you to somatic movement, and lots of other things. And it gives you a really good start for your healing journey. And you get expert guidance and live classes. Our next healing container starts in May, but you can join at any point from now on. If you would like to join, then we have we've got a heal assessment. So we've got a heal assessment, which is like, it gives you an idea about where you are in your healing journey just now. And we also give you curated exercises to do based on that. So you could get started straight away if you wanted to. And you don't even have to join the cohort for that. You don't even have to join the healing container. That's just our gift to you. We also have an assessment, not so much an assessment, but a questionnaire to see if you're the right fit for the course. And that's also free to do. And it just means that we can see whether you're ready to take on the information that we're going to be sharing with you, and to make sure that you're a right fit for our course as well, and that you're going to enjoy it and you're going to get the most from it, and we're going to be able to really help you heal. So you can get all of those details at www.moonrise.health. Yeah, that's the one. So yeah, moonrise.health is where you want to go onto the website, and you will have that. You can get straight into the heal assessment, and you can get straight into the are you a good fit for our course? Are we a good fit for you as well? So we want to make sure that you feel that we're a good fit for you too, and that's really super important as well. I'm really sorry about the connection at the beginning. I don't know what I did wrong, so I can only apologize. I am definitely not a tech genius. So has anybody got any questions about the bodies, or about the course, or about what we did tonight? Feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll come over to the camera a little bit too. I might swap cameras. I think I can do that now. I'll just double check. Cool. Okay, hi. So I'm now on this one. I'm just going to make sure that everybody is here. Thank you for this. I'm not sure that I am growing taller at the end of the posture. It's a progressive thing. So when I was first learning in Spain years and years, 12 years ago now, or over 12 years ago now, what my trainer used to get us to do, he put his hands here so we could just not see over, like there was a wall in front of us. And so every time we exhaled, we had to try and look a little bit further and look a bit further. And he used to say, there's something on the other side of the wall or the fence that you really want to see. So every time you exhale, you get a little bit more of a glimpse of what's on the other side of the wall. And that really helps. The other one was when I was a ballet dancer years ago. My teacher used to always tell us to imagine that we had an elastic attached to our head to the ceiling, so that, it would be a great place, or we'd feel, back up, so making sure you've got that feeling of length on the exhale. Thank you. Any other questions? You can ask me, honestly, anything about your pelvic floor, your posture, just anything at all. We've got another 6 or 7 minutes, so if you would like to. I'm just going to see this anymore. Cool. Yes, so the standing posture is what we want to look for in everyday life. So the more that we can line our diaphragms up, the better, the more effective our breathing will be. So if we've got this diaphragm here lined up with our thoracic diaphragm, lined up with our pelvic floor diaphragm, then it means that every time you breathe, you're getting this little mini workout for your pelvic floor. and for your fascia and your connective tissue. It's like the posture is like having the structure of a house on the outside. That's, if the top floor was falling forwards, you wouldn't be able to make it down the stairs, kind of idea. So we want to make sure that all the floors of our house, so our pelvic floor, our thoracic floor, and our head floor, are all beautifully lined up with each other, so that the diaphragms can work in the center in unison, in a perfect working order. If we imagine this is this thoracic diaphragm and this is my pelvic floor, if our rib cage is angled forwards, it means that these guys can't talk to each other properly. If my pelvis is angled tucked underneath, it means my pelvic floor is no longer talking to my thoracic diaphragm. So it's really important that we have this beautiful alignment all day, every day. And if it does feel uncomfortable just now, then that's because over time you've got these cool little tendons that are called your goggly tendons. And over time, what they do is, if you've had poor posture for a while, they start to make you think that this is comfortable, this is where you should be, this is natural. So it's going to take you time for you to remind the goggly tendons, that where they are is where the great posture is where they want to be. So it might feel uncomfortable for a bit. What other exercises do you recommend for prolapse? To start with, I absolutely not recommend hyperpressives. There's nothing else like it out there. There is nothing else. What happens with hyperpressives is during the regular breath work, you're getting this constant functional movement of the pelvic floor. So you're creating more function. All the postures ask us to think about our posture so that we're connecting our body in a really ace way again. So we're getting rid of any poor posture habits that are impacting our pelvic floor. And then when we do the apnea breath, which is a unique breath, we're actually creating a vacuum that draws the pelvic floor up. Years ago, we used to think that the fascia, the connective tissue, was passive, and that what we were really working with was the fascia was drawing it up so that our ligaments and tendons could become more supportive and have more support. But we now know that the fascia, or we're learning, fascia, connective tissue is a constantly changing world. We're now learning that the fascia has contractile properties, which means that as we're drawing it up and as we're activating it, the fascia is becoming more functional as well, which means that all that connective tissue that surrounds your pelvic organs is becoming better able and more functionally able to hold your organs in place as we do the apnea breaths. So we do the breathing and the posture to create better pelvic floor function, and then we do the apnea breath to help remind the fascia where it should be holding your organs. But yes, initially definitely hyperpressives, and then after that, belly dancing is amazing for your pelvic floor. Scar tissue release is essential for your pelvic floor. So you can do internal scar tissue release yourself, and we teach you how to do that within our healing container, but you can also find it other places if you choose to. And we also fascia release. So releasing stuck tight fascia is really, really important. And my other big one is, I'll come to that. My other big one is things like squats, functional movement patterns, sitting down, standing up again, making sure your glutes are really, really functional so they can help support your pelvic floor. How do you know if you have scar tissue issues? If you've had any pelvic trauma, such as hysterectomies, babies, coccyx injuries, then you will have some level of scar tissue. But scar tissue doesn't just come from mechanical things. It can come from being depressed. It can come really super depressed. It can come from grief. Your fascia reacts to your emotional states. So sometimes I've had clients who've had none of the mechanical issues, but they've been through a load of grief. And the tension that creates in their pelvic floor creates adhesions in their fascia, which are scars. So the best thing you can do is do scar tissue release, and you'll feel if you've got any scar tissue, and you're never going to do yourself any harm doing it, but you could do yourself a whole heap of good. There is a thing of thought that there's a school of thought in biomechanics that actually the pelvic organs are being drawn down by scar tissue. So if you have scar tissue in your pelvic floor or in your pelvis or anywhere in your pelvic area, then as the scars tighten, they start to pull the organs towards them, so pulling them down. So rather than thinking about them falling down, thinking about them being pulled down by scar tissue. So if we release the scar tissue, then we help to release the organs back to where they need to be. So our bodies are such amazing, complex, beautiful things. Kind of have to look at prolapse not just from an exercise point of view, but from a mindset point of view, from a fascia release point of view, and from a scar tissue release point of view as well. And remembering that fascia and connective tissue that surrounds all our organs in our body is mainly made up of a gel-like substance that's like water, and that the more we move, the better it is for our body. So just building up movement slowly if you've not been moving is really important. Yeah. I did not know all about scar tissue, Abby. We can do squats without Kegels. Yes, please do squats without Kegels. If you do a Kegel when you're doing a squat, you're doing the opposite thing from what you should be doing with your pelvic floor. So if I show you just now, okay, so when we come into a squat, if we come into a squat position, what's happening with our body is as we come into a squat, our femurs here at the front actually roll in a little, and our sit bones at the back move out a little to create a stretch in our pelvic floor, or a lengthening in our pelvic floor. If you do a Kegel, what you're doing is you're holding onto the pelvic floor bones, so you're not allowing them to do that natural stretch that they need. So just naturally, as we go into a squat position, our pelvic floor is lengthening, and as we come up, our pelvic floor is shortening. So we're getting that functional movement pattern. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? I'll see if there are any over here on the other side as well. Oh, there's a few. Okay. Thanks, June. Is the same information instruction similar in the Moonrise membership? Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's what I do as well. So I'll come back over to this camera. Yeah, all of the stuff I've been talking about tonight is all within the container. Yeah, I talk about this all the time. And in the container, you get to do all the live classes with me and with all our other teachers. So I go over this again and again and again to make sure that we're all getting it. From the toes to the pelvic floor. Yes, so there the 250,000 nerve endings in our feet. Okay, so we have 250,000 to 300,000 nerve endings in each of our feet, and they share the same nerve root as our pelvic floor. So the more mobile our toes and feet are, the more mobile those nerves are, the more we'll create vibration in the nerve root and activate our pelvic ones. The other thing is that our pudendal nerve and our sciatic nerve also share those nerve roots. So if we have compression in the sciatic nerve, this can create pain, both in our glutes, in our legs, and if we have compression in our pudendal nerve, then this can create a burning sensation or pain in our labia, our anus, and our urethra area. So yeah. Yeah, the big questions, eh? Your nerves are such a massive part of this. I'll change my video so I'm looking at you rather than away from you. Oh. Yeah, so your nerves are such a massive part of this picture that a lot of times we don't talk about. Yes, Lizzie, probably plantar fasciitis before you knew you had. Yep. I didn't know about that. Grief, yeah, massively. Grief's a huge one. Does hyperpressives work even if you... yes. So hyperpressives, it doesn't matter if you are unfit, if you're carrying extra weight, if there's mobility issues, we can work around them. You know, and I try really hard in all my classes to work around what's going on with people's bodies. So, yeah, if you're carrying extra kilograms, you know, we need to get you moving. You know, we just need to get you moving. And it's such gentle movement. And hyperpressives are not about chucking yourself about a room really fast. It's about really thinking about your alignment, your positioning, and initially all the poses are really, are still. We don't even move much.
but we are activating every muscle and every fascia chain in our body. So they're absolutely, I mean, they're just such a good pathway into movement as well if you've not been moving for a while. I'll just check in. That's okay. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm really sorry about the beginning. Just not tight. I honestly sent a message to you, and he'll be like, he'll have been in his bed because he's in Bali. So I hope he doesn't wake up panicking in the morning now. I'm just going to check and see if there are any more questions over this side. Cool. Okay. Oh, so should we Kegel coming up from? No, just definitely don't Kegel anywhere. Do you know what? To be honest, if you've got pelvic floor dysfunction, in all honesty, if you've got pelvic floor dysfunction, you're already carrying tension in your pelvic floor because you will be subconsciously worrying about it. So my biggest thing to you to start with is do not do a Kegel for the first 3 months. And in fact, and then after that, you probably will never want to do a Kegel again because we will have taught you or helped you understand and helped you learn more about your body so that you will not ever want to do a Kegel again because it's counterproductive. Our pelvic floor has to be able to lengthen and then release. Lengthen and then release. It's not designed to go, I want to be tight, 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 tight. A tight muscle is not a functional muscle. So it's the same anywhere in our body. This is not a functional muscle, you know? Not a functional muscle. We want to have a muscle that can fully extend and then release. So although Kegels might feel that they're working some of the time, they're on the whole are not the most productive exercise for your body. I mean, I try them sometimes just to see if I can do them now, and I can totally do them ace now because I have a functional pelvic floor. So because it knows how to extend and then release, it knows how to tighten as well. You know, it's ready for tightening, but we definitely don't want to over tighten anything. It's a big thing. And I'll just check in again and make sure there's no more questions. So you guys, if you want to find out more about our cohort, but also if you want to do our HEAL score, which is just an amazing way for you to check into where you are just now, then just head over to the website. So it's moonrise.health, and it's all there on the front page. Our next healing container starts in May. And I'm very excited if you wanted to join us. My lovely ladies who are in the healing container just now, who some of them are here this evening, I'm about to pop over and do our second hyperpressive session with them. So I'm looking forward to that. And we'll see how everybody gets on. I'm just going to check if there's any more. We will check out the recording. Yes, there's a recording as well. So so it will be emailed out to people who want it as well. Okay, so you guys, any last questions for me? Any burning questions that you really want answered that you can't wait ever? And you can always get in touch with me through Moonrise as well and ask questions. You know, I'm always happy to chat. Oh, what happened there? Everything went away for a moment. I don't know what I did. I've done it again. Who knows what I'm up to? Oh, now it's sharing two screens. Okay. I've probably lucked out for tonight. So I am going to say goodbye to everybody from my Zoom and in my Zoom room. And then I'm going to also say goodbye to everybody from the live stream. And I wish you all well. And please do get in touch if you've got any questions, because I'm really, it's my reason to ETRA. I want to make sure that everybody is doing really, really well. So, and I don't want you suffering in the dark, so please do get in touch. But I've outlucked myself with tech, so mwah! Bye everybody, take care. Thanks very much. Okay, bye.